Hello, June is Safety Month, so let's talk a little bit about this area with an expert. Brent Rader is Vice President of Safety Sales at Fastenal. Brent, thanks for talking today.
Kurt, it's always great to see you.
So, when we are thinking about safety, it's everywhere. It touches everything we do. From manufacturing to education, I can't come up with an organization that doesn't have to think about safety. So, if we decide to focus on safety, where do we start?
Kurt, over the course of the past couple of years, more people have been talking about N95s or PPE than probably ever before, right? So it's in our personal lives now, probably for the first time and in the forefront. But to safety professionals, people who've been living this for the past 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, most of those companies start with data. They're talking about injury reports and near misses. I think as you and I talk about on a regular basis, safety leaders are a thoughtful bunch. Like most of us, they want to get to the root cause of what caused a team member to get hurt. And so that core kind of analysis is really kind of one of the easiest ways to begin to focus. But the greatest challenge that many of these leaders have is a limited amount of time. Many of them have stacks of paperwork on their desk. And when it comes down to getting invested in the hazard assessments necessary, that's really where the rubber meets the road. And I think where the greatest value can be found for anybody who's not in a developed stage of their safety program.
So, if we already have a program up and running, what are we looking for next? We have a lot of existing plans and procedures in place, let's say, but we want to have a fresh set of eyes, expert eyes, take a look at everything for us, and maybe suggest improvements. What options do we have?
So, Kurt, I lead a team of almost 80 people, and so when you think about these people are all dedicated safety consultants, and we think about what they do on a daily basis. They're engaging with customers who have a need where they're looking for that expert opinion. For us, that means that we really need to invest on the front end in training to make sure that those people are staying current on all their industry recognized certifications, that they're learning about the latest safety technology, and they're engaging with manufacturers to stay on top of what the latest product technology is into the market. Like that background and that foundation really helps them to engage with safety professionals in performing the hazard assessments that we talked about earlier, giving them a fresh set of eyes and a different perspective. You'll usually find a lot of times that these people will ask a tremendous amount of questions. And what they're really trying to do is gain an understanding of what the process looks like and what the work being done in conjunction with the employee and the risk, how that interaction occurs. So once they understand the hazards and the risks at play, I think part of it is using that hierarchy of controls. Is there a way that they can engineer out the hazard? And if they get all the way down to PPE, these professionals on our team will help like manufacturers, or they'll help our customers to get their arms around what PPE they should be using to protect their workers. And again, that goes back to the technology in place that might be an engineering solution or the new advances in PPE technology that our manufacturers have shared with us.
So all of that sounds like a good way to create value, but a lot of people are asking about saving time. We're all busy, or taking care of everything is a big deal all at once. So do you have suggestions for time savings?
It's really one of the foundational principles of why we do what we do. It's project management at its core, but it's with a nod to a safety competency. So those 80 specialists will help to customers to go into sites in Canada, Mexico, the United States, Europe, and we have reach beyond that. But that's really the scope of where we've been asked to support our customers, to help them, again, identify risks in the workplace, help to mitigate those risks where possible, and then find meaningful and uniform PPE programs that they can build around, whether it be from a procurement standpoint or from a safety standpoint. And then we basically create a network with a dedicated account manager to roll those programs up on an enterprise level. So if you think about it as a safety manager, how do I get to multiple sites? How do I actually engage with the professionals at each location? And then how do I roll that all up, put a nice bow on it, and make it actually meaningful?
Okay, now you can't skim headlines these days without seeing something about supply chains. What do we need to be thinking about in regards to safety and supply chains?
So at its core, I think it's identifying those critical parts, right? So you have to know what your need is, and then create a plan. I think that one thing that's begun to get better within the safety industry is a trilateral agreement. It's where you have a partnership as the safety manager, as a procurement manager, with your distribution partner, but also with your manufacturer directly. And I think when you get all three parties to agree on what you're trying to accomplish, it is so much easier for everybody to kind of make the commitment that your supply chain is secure. And I think the number one misnomer in the process is that putting all of your eggs in one basket is bad. And as everybody kind of went through the pandemic together, they felt like they must diversify as a way to make sure that they could get products. And I think that my advice would be the exact opposite. And whether you choose Fastenal or you choose another partner, I have a vested interest in you choosing Fastenal, but I would tell you to get close to your partner. And that trilateral agreement with the manufacturer and your distribution partner, and a guaranteed commitment of some sort of what your needs are, and your distribution partner should help you to define that need. But that is really, I think, the greatest way for you to help secure your supply chain is when everybody knows what the expectation is up front, and your partners are committed to making sure that you are honestly more important than other people who are trying to gain the product in that supply chain.
And removing risk is smart. That's something that we always want to be thinking about. That's not just related to supply chains. If I ask you for a few ways that people can reduce risk in their workplaces, what do you suggest?
So again, I go back to the difference between a total recordable incident rate and life-altering workplace injuries. And so what I would tell you is that most people use frequency, severity, and likelihood to measure kind of a risk matrix to determine how bad something was and to determine what their focus was for what workplace injuries they should tackle first. And the concepts of PSIFs and some of the work being done by the Campbell Institute and the NSC has really taken a deep dive to go, frequency maybe isn't a great indicator. That the severity of the outcome is really, really critical and should be more important, if you will, when you're looking at and how to engage with the risk that exists in your business. I think that shift towards serious injuries and fatalities has been good in trying to decrease the impact on the workers that actually work for the safety managers for the companies that they're in. And I think that the goal there is really to focus on the gaps in the process where team members will say, you don't know how many times I've heard it's always been done this way, right, Kurt? Where if you bring a third party observer in, someone like us or somebody else, that they'll look at something and go, wow, that really seems unsafe. But to the person who does it every day, it's an accepted risk, right? It's like, not a big deal. I do it that way all the time. And I think that if you're looking at ways to reduce risk, focusing on either accepted work practices or tasks that may seem safe to that worker, those are some great places to start to drive out risk in the workplace.
Well, Brent, I've taken enough of your time. Thank you very much for talking today.
Kurt, I just wanted to take 1 second to kind of maybe give some credit to, again, it's the Campbell Institute and NSC. In 2018, they published a literature piece called Serious Injuries and Fatality Prevention, Perspective and Practices. If you're a safety nerd like me and you want to dive a little bit deeper into this topic, I would just tell you that that's a fantastic literature piece and super thought-provoking. So if any of the people reading this or watching this have an interest, that's a great place to start.